call to order the Gladstone City Council special meeting, July 17th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Who's going to do the roll call, or are we just not going to do that?
I can do that.
Could you please call the roll?
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Neese has asked to be excused. Councilor Tracy?
Present.
Councilor Reisner?
Here.
Councilor Todd?
Hi. I'm here.
Councilor Mercero?
Here.
Mayor Stemple?
Here. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming on short notice. I called this meeting so that we could get a debrief on the water boil notice. So what I'm going to do is have staff give us the heads up and debrief us on what happened, and then I'll have the business from the audience, if that's all right with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm going to have our Public Works Director, Jim Wynot, lead off with a summary of events that occurred. And so you want to go ahead and start with that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Council. I won't be reading this verbatim. Everybody should have one in the audience, but I am going to go over it and kind of briefly, because I think everybody can read. You'll probably need me to repeat it. Introductions first. My name is Jim Wynot. I'm City of Gladstone Public Works Director. Next to me is Justin Poiser. He's our Utility Supervisor. And then, of course, you all know Jackie Betts, City Administrator. As you guys know, the City of Gladstone's water system is not in the greatest of shape, but we are doing our best to maintain it and take care of it the best we can. And you've probably seen that from our monthly reports that we hear about quite often, and all the stuff that Justin's crew is doing out there in the field to maintain the system. So last Friday, the utility crew is out doing a leak repair on Clarendon Street. And in the process of doing that repair, we needed to throttle down the main. And what that means to us in the utility world, we throttle it down to the 20 pounds pressure, which is the minimum required to be in the system to make sure the water's safe. And what that means is if you go below 20 pounds, it's assumed that if you have leaks somewhere in the system or gaskets, you can't suck in groundwater. That's basically what that means. So they have come to the conclusion that you maintain 20 pounds and that's not an issue. Well, during that, we throttled down to 20 pounds in the attempt to not have to shut the main down. So the guys were doing it live, and that's kind of entertaining sometimes. You may have seen some of our pictures on that in the past. So at 2:30 p.m. that day, we got a phone call that they had low water, if not no water at all. We went out and investigated that, because a lot of times we need to verify that before we react. We went out, and there was some error when we were flushing the homeowner's plumbing, and it's like, that's an obvious sign that we dropped below 20 pounds. So that's when we started the emergency mode of, we need to figure out the parameters of this, how much of an area it's covering, and all that good stuff. So by 4 o'clock, we figured it out. We had all the lines flushed and issued the boil water notice by 4 o'clock. And this boil water notice is pretty much a federal mandated thing down to the state, down to the water purveyors type of a thing. So, and it's a precautionary measure. That's not to say that there was bacteria in the water, which unfortunately when you send out a PSA to the news media and stuff, they can choose to air it or not air it and add words or whatever they did. And from my understanding, some of them did say that there was bacteria in the water, and that is not the case. I want everybody to be assured of that. This is a preventative measure to warn people that the potential exists, and you should boil your water to be 100% sure and safe. So what we did is we issued the boil water notice. We collected 5 samples in the system to represent that system, and we took those off to the lab over in Tigard. The boil water notice was lifted Sunday morning. I know there was some confusion early on about how long that was going to take. Well, we were learning information as we went along. So these samples take about 18 to 24 hours to actually do once they get them in their lab and they start the process. Unfortunately, we got there after their hours. They closed, so they had to sit in their refrigerator that they have outside until the next morning when they came in, and that's when they started the sample. So they started their sampling about 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, and that's why we got the results back on Sunday morning. After the fact, of course, during the process, number one thing is get the lines flushed, take samples, and, get the problem dealt with. Since then, we spent this week evaluating the system, trying to figure out what caused it and how can we prevent this from happening in the future. That's a pretty normal process. And what we came to the conclusion of, and we feel very confident about this, is the water pressure didn't, well, because of the timing too, the water pressure did not drop below 20 pounds until after the repair was done and we were flushing the lines. So what you do when you shut the throttle down a main, you're running valves down, we have a pressure gauge on the main. That's how we verify we're not dropping below 20 pounds. Somebody's throttling it down, somebody's watching a gauge, we get it down to, we don't go right down to 20, we go 25, 30, something like that. Well, after the repair was done, we were turning it back on and flushing, because you get valve coffee, we call it. And when you operate a valve that hasn't been operated in a while, you will stir up some sediment. It's not unsafe, it's discolored water. So we're out flushing. The system couldn't take the flushing that we were doing because of the system not being looped. And I can go into detail a little bit about that, but basically, at that moment, we only had one line feeding the town. It was only a 6 or 8 inch line.
For the whole town?
For that whole,
For that part
yes, exactly. And the reason why, you may remember about 2 or 3 months ago, we had a write-up in our monthly report about a pressure-reducing valve out by the Seventh-day Adventist that doesn't work. We can't get parts for it or repair it, so we need to replace that. Well, had that valve been working, this would not have happened because we'd have had that dual feed. And that's a 24-inch line versus a 6-inch line. So, anyways, that's the reason why, after researching it early on this week. So, that is on our radar to do, and it's bumped a little bit in priority. So, anyways, we will be working on that. We do have a plan in place. It's just finding the time and the resources to do it. And it's not an easy one because the valve that was put in there was cheap, not maintained anymore, and we have to kind of redo the whole vault. So, it's going to be a little bit of an undertaking. So, enough about, I guess, what caused it, but we know that now, and if we have a problem until we get that fixed, we're going to be definitely doing a little different on our flushing. Another downside to this 24-inch line that we have running through town, it pretty much runs down Clarendon Street all the way from about 99E all the way up to Caisson. That's over a mile of pipe, no valves. We had to isolate that whole section of pipe. So we know this was a problem. The guys that went out and verified it, this was like a year or two ago. We know, hey, this is a big line. We better make sure we can get on the valves. The guys went out, verified it, got on all the valves. So luckily, we didn't have to go out and look for valves. We knew where they were at because we were prepared to do that. So we were able to do that in a fairly timely manner. So knowing that, when we're doing the Clarendon project down here, you guys are aware of the 2 blocks of the CDBG project, we're cutting in a valve. That was in the plans. We know that it's an issue, so we are cutting in another valve, so that'll help. As we do projects up that road, we'll be installing more valves, so we don't have this issue.
How far do you usually have distance between valves?
Well, it depends on the size of the main. So this big of a main, these valves are expensive, so you wouldn't typically, to answer your question about every block, intersections, you want to have a valve. You want to be able to isolate that block. A 24-inch valve, I would not suggest that because these things run about $7,000 to $8,000 a valve. So we will probably go 3 to 4 blocks, make it a little more manageable, and not break the bank. But at least you're not shutting off a mile of pipe to do a repair. You're shutting off, 2 or 3 blocks. So that's, on this line, that's what I would recommend. But typically, if you're doing a 6 and 8 inch gridded system, which is pretty typical through a neighborhood, you'll put them at intersections and T's. So, which is typically at every intersection you have a cross and you put valves on it so you can isolate. And then when you're flushing and doing things, you have control. Where here it was pretty difficult to have control. And when you're trying to flush out a 24-inch line, you're going to move some volume water to do that. You can't just, unless you let it run all weekend type of a thing. So you kind of get a little more aggressive with it, which we're not going to do until we get some of these weak links fixed in the future.
So all of this is still a surprise for you guys. When you get in these get under the streets and
Yeah.
start looking at what we have, doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily match up with what we
Right,
were told.
and we, as time allows, like I said, this about a year or two ago, the guys went out, it's like, let's identify all of our biggest emergencies. And this is part of our emergency ops. We didn't have this a couple years ago. The guys, this is what they've been putting together. And then a section of this is boil water notice. What happens if, so we followed that. Have we used it yet? No, we produced it and then we moved on to the next section and we built this thing. So does it have some room for improvement? Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yes, it's like Christmas every day when you go out in the system.
Not in a good way.
So there's no more. Is there any more questions about the physical part of the system, or I can move on?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So lessons learned. Absolutely, we've learned lessons. The guys learned some lessons out in the field. We're not going to flow as much as we have this issue until we get these other problems fixed. Communication with the public. Absolutely. There's, I've been doing this for a long time, and it is tough because you have to issue these notices, and when it's a large scale like this, it even gets more difficult. I'd say 90% of the time you're dealing with a block. We're knocking on doors, we're door hanging, that's how you notify. But with this, when you're talking, half the town or a little bit more, yeah, you got to use other means. So, we did some debriefing on that.
Why don't you go over the fourth bullet for the public to just talk about how we did notify the public?
Yep,
so
that's on my,
okay,
that's on my list, absolutely.
Quick question, Jim. What's the standard PSI? What's the standard pressure in that main?
In this lower part of town, the standard is about 90.
90?
In this town, yes.
So the 24-inch is running at 90?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this whole lower zone, for the most part, it's all based on elevation, is about 90.
Okay.
Static. Yeah.
Upper
zone, it varies because you go into different zones.
Yeah.
So you could actually have less pressure or more pressure up above because now you're talking different reservoirs.
Right, okay.
So we have 3 zones in town, and they all have different pressures and different characteristics.
Okay, but 90 on the 24.
90 on the lower zone here, yes. Yep. And 90 on some asbestos pipes down in this lower, all the pipes down here, so
We don't
yes.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So what we did as far as our public, and this is all in this white paper that we did just so everybody had it, what we did for notification is we did a flash alert. This is all in our procedures. We followed the procedures. We did social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then on our website, we also have the emergency banner, and we did that. And another lesson learned from that is a lot of people didn't realize you had to click on the banner to get to all the additional information, like how to boil your water and all the stuff. Lesson learned, we're going to say click here for additional information. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we did learn through this. So those are what we used. And talking with the county, because our recorder, we had somebody available on call, which we always do. The county finally said, hey, you should do reverse 911. And it's like, well, that sounds like a good idea. Wasn't really aware of that. So Saturday morning, they did that. It's like, let's do it. Let's get it out there. So that caused some confusion. We're aware of that now. And we're going to redo this whole thing, and we're going to have a little better process. So all the staff got together. We documented all the citizens' call. We have all of their concerns and comments. We have the council's concerns and comments. We have all those in a list, and all of the management team is getting together, and we are going to perfect this notification piece, because I would say that was probably I don't want to call it a failure or anything, but that's probably where we had the most improvement to happen. So that's what we are going to be working on. And we go into detail on the back of that sheet, if anybody's flipped that over. And I can go into detail on some of that stuff. So we all got together and debriefed. We're going to, in the future, on a similar size event, we are going to initiate our interdepartment incident command. We do have an incident command set up, and we should use that in these types of situations, because then we get some support. We just kind of went into this, following the procedures, and kind of halfway panic mode and everything else. If we go into this this situation with the incident command, that'll help that out a lot, because then somebody can be handling that while we're still dealing with the emergency. So with that, you designate a public information officer, which would be providing all the information and hitting all these communication points out there. And of course, each situation is different. Like I mentioned, if it's a block long, we're not going to activate an EOC. We're going to go out. We're going to go door to door. We're going to isolate services. We can manage that a lot different. So we're not going to have one size fits all, but I'm trying to compare these to a similar size event like we had, which that was a big one. Yes.
Jim, would you explain or mention to people who may not understand what a reverse 911 is?
Well, I don't 100% understand, but what I do understand about is they have the ability, Clackamas County has the ability to robocall all the contacts they have in their system in a geographical area. So they can send out whatever message you want, Gladstone, boil water notice, go to the website for more information, whatever you want it to be. And am I correct with that,
You're absolutely
Chief?
correct. So typically it's more of a geofencing of the area, and then the numbers that dispatch has access to is a robocall, and you write out the message. You write out the message to put in there, and then you just push the button and it calls everybody these messages, and it just
Right.
delivers whatever it is that you want to say.
Right.
So is that Flash Alert, or is that Everbridge?
That's something different.
Yeah.
Something different completely?
That's
Okay.
CCOM.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So through CCOM, Chief, then are we talking about landline only, or are we talking about
Okay.
Landline or
Okay.
unless you're signed up
with
for
a
your
cellular
cell phone
number?
also. So, but that is for people who actually signed up.
Okay.
The reverse 911 is, you have to sign
Right.
up for it
No,
physically?
the first 911 for landlines is always going to be there.
Okay,
It's if you want to add a cell phone,
okay.
you have to include that, so.
Right.
Don't have one of those
help?
landline things. Probably not for 10
Dude,
years,
you gotta get with the
actually.
You even get this rotary dial phone.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Most likely that is a small percentage of people.
Yes.
It's possible, but as I get down in here on some of the other stuff we're going to do, we're going to do some public outreach at the bottom of this list. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but we're going to do some public outreach. We're going to put in a bill stuffer. We're going to have a survey out there that how would you like to be contacted, and we have the ability. We're not 100% sure it's the most efficient, but we're going to look into our billing software has this ability too. But then we also got to balance out how many systems do you maintain for something that happens once every 5 or 10 years or whatever. It's hard to say. So we're in the process of evaluating this whole thing, and before we stick it in our yellow Bible here, we will ask for input of everybody. Is there anything we're missing or whatever? So skipped around a little bit, but let me get back on here. We're going to improve the information on the website. Like I say, when we do the banner, we're going to actually say in it, click here for additional information, because it was not intuitive at all. I didn't think to do it right away, and it's like, well, I wonder if I click on it, and then boom, there's all the information. So that's definitely an improvement that can be made. More timely information. I think we can be more timely and maybe more updated information, at least especially to City Council and other department heads. I dropped the ball on that. I did not include the other department heads in this. PD knew about it because we used them to do the flash alert, but fire was totally left out of it. They should be on our checklist to do that, absolutely, because they're here and they're probably going to get calls. So that's an improvement that we can make, absolutely. And with all this, we're going to develop a template, to replace some of the templates we have in here, and it's going to be kind of jokingly, but it's going to be so simple a caveman can do it. I mean, we're going to make it very easy to do. So that's why we have this, because we have somebody on call all the time. They may not necessarily work in park or in utilities. They may be in parks or streets, but they're going to be able to figure it out here because they're on call. So that's what this Bible is for, and it's guys did an awesome job with it. It's pretty good. Working forward, we're doing an after incident customer communications. So we're going to include a bill stuffer that's going to talk about the incident, explain what happened, and kind of wrap what I'm talking about a little bit in detail. Try to make it not 5 pages or whatever, and how they can prepare for this type of stuff or even other emergencies. That should be a general term, preparing for emergencies, right? So we're gonna include that in there as well. We're gonna ask for feedback and how best to communicate during an emergency, and then we'll do an article in the newsletter as well, because that actually is probably one of the best communication tools we have, at least to prepare ahead of time for this stuff. So. Actually, it'd probably been a lot shorter if I just read this, right? But anyways, I get on a roll. I want you guys to know everything that's going through my head and what I know. So with that, is there any questions or concerns from anybody in the audience? Or improvements that we can make?
I got a question on, two things. Thanks for the meeting. I think it was a great way to share the information. The map, to me, it wasn't real clear.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and I wasn't real sure what area was
Right.
at. So I think if we could improve the map.
Yeah, the difficult, I agree with you 100%. We could do some shades a little bit different on there, I noticed. But trying to get such a big area on such a little thing was our difficulty. So in a hurry, what we did is that's just our, if you go into our website and click on our maps and go to pressure zones, that's our pressure zone maps. And so basically it was this whole lower pressure zone. So it was very convenient just to print that because it was the green, blue, and red or whatever. So, yes, yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, and having, if we were to delegate some of these responsibilities that I think would really help with some time, like having in this situation, doing an EOC, and we can get the message out there, and we can start working. We have the ability to tweak that map. We can actually create a list of all the homes that are affected if we have the time to draw a line and do a query, but it just took some time. And another thing that kind of led to some of our problems there is it was a Friday afternoon, and so we were down on people. But we need to prepare for Saturday night when everybody's out of town.
Yeah,
and so, yeah, so yep.
One more thing about notifications. Thankfully, for the internet and what we've got going now, I don't know whether that was 20 years ago. Grandma called me. I wasn't on the internet.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it was the news.
Yeah, news.
5 o'clock news or whatever. Yeah.
Is the sign, the Amber Alert signs available for something like this?
I don't
Probably
know
not.
the answer to that. That's an Amber Alert thing, so I don't know.
Because we're relying on
Right.
other than
Right.
door.
Yeah.
Right.
We need something.
Well, I think Amber specifically for kidnapping or abductions.
Yeah.
But what I had up there is that today we made a 1-minute video on how to sign up for Flash Alert, and it's going to be posted on the city's website. So it's like a YouTube video, and we're finding that including yourself to sign up for Flash Alert is the immediate message that we're trying to get people out there as well to do that. So that should be posted to the city's website tomorrow, so people can sign up for that.
Okay.
And I think the Tyler technology in the utility bill, when we're going to send it out, we're going to say, do you want to be notified of an emergency? And so we have that capability to notify people too. But we do need to do a better job of establishing an EOC and a point of contact, because I know the elected officials were getting inundated with phone calls, and you need to bring those to us and know where to put those. So we will put those methods in place too. Our utility billing account clerk had over 160 voicemails on the phone, and she returned every single one of those calls, and she did a wonderful job and provided some really good feedback for us. You know, what about those people that are on breathing machines, oxygen at home, and they can actually contact the city and sign up to be notified if we know people in their homes have special circumstances. So that's really what we're learning from this, because absolutely we want to do a better job. We don't want it to happen again, but something is, and I think it's great that you have our management team here to reassure you that our after action plan is going to be better next time.
Well, I have to be honest that I was asked, well, what's our plan A, B, C, and D? And I said, well, to be honest with you, I didn't even feel like we had a plan A, which is unfortunate because we're so lucky that this was a simple little emergency. If it was a bigger one, you know, how many people would have been negatively impacted?
And that's part of
Severely
that,
impacted.
preparing for an emergency. This could be an earthquake.
Right.
If we have an earthquake in this town, 19 miles of asbestos pipe, your system's going to be down for months. We're going to be up at the
Probably
reservoir with
months.
a
It's not really
spigot.
even
you know,
if, it's when it
so.
happens.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
you know
gonna be
what I
when.
mean? We're going to have something, so.
And we have copies of the water sample here. If anybody wants that, we can post them. The unfortunate part is they're very hard to understand. And basically what what they tell us is that your water is fine, but we do have copies of that information here.
Yeah, the test results are basically total coliforms and E. coli. They're either present or absent. That's what the results say. But there's more to the test than that, obviously, but that's what our test results say. But there is a copy of all of them
Natalie
there.
had a question.
I was wondering, in the city's history, how many times has this happened before? Or we had a issue of having...
Probably happened, we just weren't told.
Well, I think it was
It
just
probably
said,
happened, but we
but
just weren't told about
prior to me getting here, Justin hiring on board as a utility supervisor, if this happened in the past, I feel very comfortable from the stories I've heard, nobody would have known about it. They would have just,
Yeah.
they would have just
Yeah.
went out to the person called, flushed it, and said, nope, all good, I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm just assuming with that, but we did not have this. We didn't even have people on staff that were certified to take samples, taking samples. We had a lot of issues here, and we're coming a long ways, and yeah, I don't think you guys would have known about it. I've heard stories of the reservoir going dry, and how many of you guys knew about that?
During the
4 or
Seventh-day
5 years
Adventist.
ago?
during the
Okay,
camp,
yeah.
Turned on the water and it would be trickling and we had brownouts. So,
Yeah.
there was too much
So,
electricity.
that's why I think that.
I remember that.
Well, as uncomfortable of an experience this was for people in our community, I am so proud of the work that our city employees did. We did everything that the state required us to do, and so we really do appreciate, because there was a lot of effort that went in to trying to control that.
I had calls from other water purveyors Friday night. You need some help. Is everything under control? What's going on? You know, I mean, so it's pretty nice. And something else I learned through this process, we just got to be careful how many places we get this out, but the water, let me get this right, the Water Consortium, the Pacific North, the metro area, all the water purveyors are part of this group. They actually have a program that if you entered in all this data, people can go on there, right on their front page, you enter in your address and whether you're affected or not. Very
Perfect.
simple. But I don't know what, we're going to learn, is this something we want to pursue or not? And then what it does, it sends out alert to all the other water purveyors so they can help answer questions, is my water safe? So they're aware of it. So that's something we learned through this process as well by talking with the other water purveyors.
Michael has a question.
I followed along on a lot of the social media, reactions to this, and a couple of the issues that came up with, there's always a certain amount of skepticism from the public regarding anything the city does, of course, so people are going to look at it in the worst possible way. Even after it was determined that the water was safe, there were people who were showing photographs of brown water coming out of the tap, and so I want you to say a little more about this sediment and how widely it may have affected people.
Right.
The other thing is, someone else also posted that they felt the need to drain their water heater, to remove the aerators on their faucets.
Yes.
That there were a lot of things that they thought were required to do after a boil alert was given.
Right.
So the other information that would be helpful to get if this ever happens again is what the individual homeowner or water user needs to do in follow-up.
Yes. And back to my original part, click here for additional information. It was all there. It's just a lot of people, it wasn't intuitive that you need to click on that banner. It brought it up a whole page.
Well,
And
that banner is this tall.
yeah.
To be big, flashy.
And I'm siding
Yep.
with the citizens on
Yep.
this one. I hit it
Right.
after the second time it tickered across. I hit it and it downloaded the information.
Right.
It's like, we can do better than
Yes.
that.
Nope, absolutely. That's something that
How big are
good
we?
advice. Yeah.
I also might suggest changing the color like, so, okay, we're in the
Go green when it's all good or something.
No, because
right.
after it was still red, and
Right.
and I wasn't paying attention because, well, okay, it was red. They'll change it to a different color when it's all over.
Right.
And then I happened to see Sunday morning that the wording changed.
Yeah, well, and add a little more information to that is we had a couple people putting that banner up. Well, when one person puts it up, it doesn't necessarily overwrite, but it just follows it. And so one changed it, we thought it was changed, but then it said water's good, and then water's not good. Yeah, I mean, because there was we were doing such a good job, it was like everybody was putting input on it, type of thing. So another lesson learned, having a public information person being able to manage all this, is that everybody was just trying to do the right thing and go, you know, over and beyond.
So
and-
back to the sediment
Yes.
question.
So the sediment question, sorry. But we did talk about that. So why there was sediment out there, and the reason why I feel comfortable to say this, it's in the homeowner's plumbing, is while the guys were out flushing the whole system, they did not get any discolored water. Everybody was flushing, that's something you monitor, because it's like, well, am I getting it? When is it coming? You know, okay, we should have gotten it by now. But what has probably happened, all those homes that had that, they probably had galvanized plumbing, and when the pressure fluctuates and we're out there changing pressure, shutting down hydrants and stuff, it's going to stir their galvanized plumbing up. So most of the places that we have their address on that said they had dirty water, yeah, they're galvanized plumbing. So most of that was internal plumbing to that business or home or what have you.
Not just the house adjacent to where you did the original repair, it could be spread all over.
In that whole zone where the pressure was
I got
doing some
Gloucester,
crazy
Hereford, and
stuff.
Ipswich. I had calls from
Yeah.
those 3 streets
Yeah.
with dirty water.
Yeah, so that's something, the debriefing after the fact, okay, what kind of dirty water were you guys getting? Were you getting air? Nobody got air, it was just that one, so it was like really questionable whether we do this. We erred on the side of, we're gonna send out the boil notice, you know, because as a water purveyor in public health, that's what you do. You err on that side of
So
safety.
could GEMS or CERT have helped at all get the message out? Is that some groups that we could
Depending
tie
on the
into?
size, in this situation, they probably could have helped man some phones and we'd had live bodies there instead of a voicemail, maybe. It's possible.
What about that? In one of the other towns I've lived in, they had a call-in number that was not always activated, but when there's something happened in the city, it was basically a recording. They could take 100 calls at a time, 100 phone callers at a time, and it basically gave the information, told that when the next update would be. And it really kind of became incumbent upon the citizen to be able to kind of keep up to date. And we didn't have these types of situations because people knew to call into the number. If there was a boil water notice, or there was a wildfire, there was something else, and they needed the information fast, they could call in and get the information if they weren't online or if they were out in the field.
Online.
Right.
And just get the information. I mean, this could be something we potentially could put off to the side, have it just have a
Right.
service that we pay a subscription to and then activate it when we need to.
Right.
At least everyone has a number they can call into.
Yeah.
Right. Well, one of the things we did do, similar to that, is we changed our messages on the utility billing one and the one at Public Works to say, yes, if you're calling about the boil water notice, it has been lifted, because, and then calls versus how many voicemails were left went way down, because that's what they were wanting to know. So we kind of did that in a sense.
Okay.
But that other way is an option too. I just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
or whatever way, just
Yeah,
giving them,
right.
but saying to them, if you want information about this particular issue, or any of these issues, you can call the city
Sure.
line and
Right.
get the information you need.
Right.
Jim's home number, give him
No,
a call.
here's all the counselors. Where they live.
What's the zip code for Tahiti? No, I'm just kidding. No.
On the banner itself, was there a time that the actual boil notice started? Did it say? Because people didn't
No.
know. That was another
No,
thing.
it said
People were like,
it immediately.
okay, and some people the next day are going, is it immediately? When does the 18
Mhm.
to 24
Yeah, I'm
to
pretty sure it
48
was
hours start?
immediately,
You know,
but,
that
yeah.
kind of a thing. So maybe
Yeah.
having that. I also had somebody reach out to me about a talk-to-text type thing where if it actually had the streets on there for people who, or some place that we could go and look to see what streets were affected, and I know that's difficult, but people who had vision issues or, you know,
Mhm.
whatever would be able to access that a little
right,
bit
impaired.
better. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that would be important.
Right.
You know.
Also, you mentioned that the samples didn't get to the lab till just after 5 o'clock when they
Mhm.
closed. So they sat there for 17 hours.
Overnight, yes.
Right. So is there not any labs in the Portland area that can do something like this on an emergency basis?
This is pretty standard protocol where if the lab is closed, they have a refrigerator outside basically, and they can sit in that refrigerator for like 48 hours or something like that. So this is just a standard procedure. Alexan Analytical, they do the samples for most of the areas around. So I don't know if there's others that'll do it overnight or come in and work overnight. I don't know. I don't know that, but this is pretty standard where if you bring it in, you give them a call because they typically don't work weekends, and they'll come in the next day and they'll run it. And then it's got to incubate for,
That's
you know,
the
18 to
culture.
24 hours.
Well, right. So,
Yeah.
like I say, so we're boiling water for 18 hours while it's just sitting there waiting for someone to show up, which I don't think is
Right.
very good customer service. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
standard, I mean, if there
Right.
isn't one in the Portland area, then okay. I mean, you know, I don't say let's fly it to Seattle.
Right.
But I would say let's see if we can find, you know.
Yeah, we can look and see if there are any other labs, but I
mean,
I just know all the other, this is just what everybody in the area does, so I haven't looked into it, but
Okay.
it's,
I would
Yeah.
suggest that.
Yeah. But then
and hopefully we don't have to.
we have a
use them,
contract
but-
with these guys, so if we were gonna do that for something that happens, hopefully not very often, at this
Right.
level,
We
do
can
we
follow
redo?
up with the company.
But,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean,
See if there's
just,
some other
I think
options.
it's just, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
The other
service to
uncomfortable
the customers.
truth
Or-
is we need to fix our infrastructure. And you know, in a couple of months, we're having an open house about utility rates.
Yes.
And we not trying to use this to gain momentum, but the underlying issue in Gladstone is we've got to start fixing our pipes.
Yep. Yeah, I saw something on Nextdoor where somebody had looked, probably at Public Works, the first time probably ever had looked at the website, and they're like, and they quoted how it said that the money that had been charged, it was just barely enough to sort of just keep everything going. They're like, well, don't you think that is lack of, you know, foresight? I'm like, well, yeah.
Well, it was for 30 years.
Right, exactly, but I think there's a huge amount of that.
Councilor Mercer got his hand
Oh,
up.
yeah.
I was glad to hear the question on the map. I went back to look at that map when it first occurred, and I was looking for the site that was actually the problem area,
Mhm.
okay, and it was actually colored green. The red zone, which was another area of the map, wasn't the problem area.
Right.
And being an engineer at heart, typically green means good. You know, it's okay,
Right.
and I would recommend wherever the bad spot is colored red.
Right. Nope, that's a good point. Like I say though, that was just that was a map we didn't have to produce. It was already in our system, and so we just in a haste, well, there it is. That's that zone. So,
Yeah, I
nope,
don't
good
think
point though.
I don't think I helped that either because I couldn't get it to go to my Facebook page, and so I had to screenshot it and do it. And I was
Oh.
going back with the client, which I don't think that helped. But that was
Right.
shared 400 times, and
Right.
it wasn't a
Oh my
clear
goodness.
picture.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I don't. Sorry.
All her fault.
Sorry.
No, that's-
I went back and changed it afterwards, but
Call
you know I had to do a
Tracy, all those
massage.
phone
So.
calls. Text her.
My other comment towards fixing this is that we've got 28 years left, I believe, to fix it per the law, okay? We've kind of planned on 20 years. I believe that's the wrong way to go. We should try to get it done in the next 5 to 10 years. The sooner the better. It'll be cheaper if we do it sooner.
Right. Yeah, we have master plans and rate studies. We have all the documents to say what we need to do in our system. What's the next step, right?
Well, yeah, we have to be thoughtful about it, and we can't raise our citizens' utility rates to $1,000 a month.
So let's figure out a way to pay for it.
Right.
Not beating around the bush about it. It's a problem. It's been a problem for many decades. Okay? It's not going to get any better. It's not going to be any cheaper. It'll only cost a lot more. When I first started looking at this a few years ago, it was around $80 million to fix it. Now it's $1.3 million to fix it. How much will it be in another 2 years, 5 years?
Yep. Yeah, we'll be having these discussions in about a month or so
Yep.
about all of our utilities. It's not just water, it's our infrastructure and the whole
What day
community.
is that scheduled for?
It's in September, and we are going to have it probably at the high school auditorium or in their cafeteria, but fundamentally it's going to come down to what are elected officials willing to raise rates that their citizens can afford, or do you want to go out for a bond and borrow all the money, take it to a vote of the people? Those are the types of options that you have to consider. And none of it is going to be comfortable with your citizens to have that. So any information we can provide you in support of that, that's our goal.
All right.
in the meantime, we're going to do the best we can to keep the system running as long as it can and as safe as we can.
All right, with a guarantee, we need you to come back to us with the new process.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
As we develop this and perfect it, before it goes in the Bible, we will definitely send it out and have you guys review it. Yep.
Okay, so you're re-looking at all of the emergency ops
Yes.
plans.
Immediately,
Well, specifically the boil water notice.
Right,
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
Want to
Yes.
make sure that all of them are
Mhm.
current and correct.
So I didn't have all of the facts of what was going on, but I never was terribly concerned because I knew Jim Wynot was on the
Justin, thank you.
I know we've got a good public works director and a good public works team, so I knew that this was not that big of a deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
did Justin want to say anything?
hey, Justin, want to say anything?
He paid me like $30 ahead of time.
Take it all. No, I think everything Jim said I would completely reiterate, and I think we did really well. And we'll just look forward to some of the small improvements that we can do to get better and gear
They're
up for
big
next time.
improvements. Communication, that's a huge
Big
improvement.
improvements, exactly. But
Yeah.
I feel it's something that we can make some tweaks and really come a lot stronger the next time.
These are improvements we can do that don't cost a lot of money, it's just planning,
Yeah,
the communication part.
okay. So, yeah, definitely come back to us with, not for our approval, but so that we're confident that these things
Oh,
are in
absolutely,
place.
yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
offer that we probably need you and I talked about call trees, but also staff redundancy, so that we see if there's a PIO that's not in place, that there is a backup PIO.
Mhm.
We have folks we have a redundant system. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got emergency ops plan in front of you. I've done ICS training and worked in IC, and you have that redundancy system because
Mhm.
the whole idea is you're not supposed to fail at all.
Right.
It's supposed to be just
Right.
right lockstep right down the tree.
And some of the communication the management team talked about, an improvement we can make that we haven't talked about tonight, is you don't have a name on there per se, call Joe Bob. There's a position, and everybody makes sure in those departments that somebody's filling that position
All the time.
all the time. And
Yep.
it's not a name, it's a position. For example, Public Works, we have a pager that we're tied in with CCOM. So we don't say call Steve, we say call that pager. We make sure that pager is occupied, whether it's one person, and sometimes two, as a matter of fact, because we have two pagers. We can share the load a little bit, so. And that's something to take away from this as well. So.
And in that vein, not necessarily, related to this incident, but it's just emergencies as, in general, it's been several years since a tabletop exercise has been done here in town, which was primarily staff, and as far as I know, since I was elected a few years ago, we've never been involved in anything like that. And
We've
I
been
think-
invited to a couple with the county. I've gone to two of
Right.
them.
Well, yeah, the county-wise, but I'm talking about with us
Right.
here at the city level, which I think this kind of shows that, hey, we need to have something
Yeah.
like that sooner than later.
Yeah, no, it's a point well taken. They offer a lot of these around the metro area, as a matter of fact, and we would like to participate in some of them. Actually, we got to get to a time where we can manage our time a little better and actually dedicate time to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more questions for staff?
Mine are more statements, I guess. I feel like being here and that now I'm representing the elderly of the city who, I do no social media, none whatsoever, and I think you need to keep that in mind. And I'm more savvy than many of my friends in terms of cell phones and stuff. I got no alerts on my cell phone at all. I got no notification. I only knew because I was in a restaurant in Gladstone, and they came in and said, you have to shut down, the water's, and you have to get out, we have to close. So that's a little, you're I have a microbiology background, and I'm not going to take something like this lightly. And I agree with, you've said pretty much everything that I had already written down, but it was very unclear what to do when it was over. I understand there's two levels of boil water alerts. There's the first one that it's potentially contaminated, and then there's the one where it actually is contaminated.
Correct.
And I don't think it was clear which one this was, and it's certainly not clear what you do for the different ones. So, you know, and I live alone, so I spent Sunday trying to get all my aerators off, and I did not drain my water heater, but I did pretty much everything else. And that just needs to be a lot clearer, and there does need to be a way to get the word out to people that don't do all these things, don't do all these electronics.
Right. And I think an answer to that would be very helpful is when we send out a questionnaire in the monthly bill, there's going to be that opportunity if you want to be contacted emergency, how best to do that. And if it's a cell phone, a landline, whatever it is, that's one of the things we're going to ask, and that provides that opportunity for those.
And we'd ask you to help us get your neighbors to respond to that, because that's the information we need to make sure that everything goes well the next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I appreciate what Jackie said about the video that's going to talk about that, because back in June we had in the newsletter a Clackamas County Public Alerts notification that how to change, because things had changed at that level where, you know, we have our own now. I thought I'd done it right, but I never got a call, so apparently I
put it in the newsletter.
I did.
Help you sign up for that flash alert too, so your cell phone will get that notice if you want us to help you.
I can do it if it's put out somewhere.
Right.
You know, usually
The
I
information's
can
out.
do it, and like you've already said, the other thing too was I knew enough to go on the city website, but even getting to Public Works was difficult, and then getting from Public Works in general to the actual water thing was just luck that I finally hit on it or something. And so, yeah, I just think, that social media cannot be the thing that you totally rely on.
No, because I think 27% of our citizens are senior citizens.
At risk, and I'm not.
They're not computer people.
But they're the ones that are more at risk to be seriously affected by something like that.
Yeah, Natalie?
As soon as I saw Councilor Todd's post on Facebook, I contacted all my neighbors on my side of the street and across the street that I knew were elders, because that was my concern, so I just went out and...
Maybe we need to have more neighborhood watch programs where people kind of help each other.
It could be in a phone tree type situation too.
Yeah.
Councilor Todd's posts were great, and what I didn't know, I Googled and whatever, found out the rest, but I shared that with the senior citizens that I knew didn't have any way of knowing, so.
Well, thank you, but many, many other people did not do that. I think our phones can attest to that. Colin?
One of the things that Jim, the Gladstone Emergency Management Support, discussed today at the meeting was doing an outreach at the community festival to help, especially seniors and lower income families that don't have necessarily, the smartphones, but still get them signed up, do step-by-step instruction on hand at the festival while we're there. So.
Okay.
Oh, great idea.
Good. The city's not going to have a booth, so if you need some of us to help man it, let us know.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay.
Colin, does the senior center have any way of getting, if you wanted to get a hold of everybody?
So the only access that we have would be to those who have provided us their number.
Yeah. And it would be manual.
Yes.
Nothing automatic.
Flip a switch and it just dials everybody. It's, it would have to be researched, and then we had those numbers successful, but...
It would be our goal to set this up so that it's very simple, easy, and quick, and reliable, and all those good things. So, with our chiefs on board there, and Colin and the whole management team, we're going to make that happen.
The National Night Out, is that something that we incorporate with that for when a situation happens, that the people that are in those certain areas can help get the word out?
It would be nice. National Night Out's kind of fallen to the wayside, but I believe there's someone that's interested in bringing that together again.
Doesn't that usually happen in August?
The Tuesday after the festival.
Okay. I think we should talk.
Yes.
That should be something that should be addressed in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
We can do that when we do our rounds. We can then bring down some flyers and some sheets and some talking points.
Need a
and
motion.
pull it together. Because we'll still do our rounds, and I can make sure those are talking points.
Yeah.
So we have any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion then?
I move that we adjourn.
By Counselor Reisner and seconded by Counselor Todd to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much
50,
for coming,
48.
everybody.
Thanks, Jim.